Yeah, just a second.
Okay.
Okay, got it. I used this.
Yeah, I saw it.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's really good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine. And I was reading it as you were writing it as well.
Yeah.
And so it looks like a lot, but it's definitely going to be short as you implement. You get what
Yeah. No. Yeah. And I'll cut the and also it's like first draft, so it's like first draft, cut the fat then.
Yep. So now we're going to take it live since you've written your script. So I know that you've been using your mobile.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So we're gonna act like you're actually in front of the kids and going through it with them, and then I'll be your student as well as give you live feedback.
Sounds good. Oh. That's the beauty of the mobile desk. All right. All right. So today we're going to be jumping into a problem that we have had a little trouble on over the past few IAs. And so what I'm going to do is I will complete this problem completely on my own. And as I complete this, I want you to pay attention to my thinking steps. I want you to make sure that your paper matches mine. And I want to make sure that if you have any questions, you're going to hold them and wait until we're completely finished with our model. So I would do a CFU here. So what are you going to be working on? What are the students going to be working on as I complete my model, Ms. Pendleton?
So I'm going to be looking at your thinking steps, your annotations, and my paper should match yours.
Perfect. So here we go. All right, I'm looking at number 1. First thing I'm going to do is start off by reading through the question. According to figure 2, I'm going to stop myself right there. I definitely know that I'm at figure 2. I'm going to be boxing that in. I always box in where I'm going to look. At 400 kilometers altitude, the atmospheric temperature at a sunspot maximum is closest to which of the following? So, yep.
Annotation. So you're looking at figure 2 annotations?
Yep.
But something specifically about figure 2, right?
Yeah, so I was going to have them underline that.
Okay, you underline it? Okay.
Yeah, it's on there.
Okay.
So I just finished reading through the question, so I'm definitely going to be boxing in figure 2. And I'm going to be underlining where in figure 2. So figure 2 is what I'm looking at. The underlining is going to be where I need to look at, specifically on figure 2. So I'm going to be underlining a couple of things here. The first is the 400 kilometer altitude, the atmospheric temperature, and sunspot maximum. There are 3 things that are kind of coming together that I'm going to be looking at. So now I'm going to go back to my table, and as I look at my table, there are a couple of things I'm going to make sure that I pay attention to. The first thing that I'm looking at are my axes. X is the atmospheric temperature. I want to make sure that I know that. Yeah.
But why is it important for me to know the X? So your thinking thoughts are.
Oh, I'm missing
It is
those.
so important for me to know the X-axis because it's going to show me my, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So go into it. So instead of like, I'm going to label this because I need to label it, but like those thinking thoughts is like, I'm labeling this X-axis because it is my independent variable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this is important because this is what the sciences is changing.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that this isn't independent or dependent variable. It's just comparing 3 different things.
But even though you're comparing those 3 different things, you still want to be able to give them that information. Like, it is important that I know this because I should be able to identify the different axes because
Got it.
It has this information on it.
Got it.
Yeah, even though it may not be stamped in that, they still have to know that piece to get to the second half. Yeah.
Great. So then I would say, okay, so now I'm going to go back to my graph. And the first thing that I do when I look at my graph, no matter what type of graph it is, I'm going to look and I'm going to annotate all of my axes and any sort of extra wording that I might see. So if I look at my table, the first thing I notice is my x-axis. I'm going to circle that right here. It's the atmospheric temperature in degrees Celsius. That's going to be important because I know from my question it asked about temperature. So I'm definitely going to be using the x-axis. If I look at my y-axis, which is the next thing that you should always look at, I'm going to underline this or circle it as well. It says altitude in kilometers. Again, I remember from my question, I'm going to be comparing both of these things. So I'm definitely in the right area. The last thing that I want to look at are all of these different lines, because if I look, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different words and 3 different lines. So I see support minimum or sunspot minimum, thermopause, thermosphere, exosphere, and sunspot maximum. I want to make sure that I see those and I read through them. But for this question, I'm going to be focusing on the line that says sunspot maximum because that's what it asked for in my question. So I'm literally going to be looking at this specific line, and I'm tracing it right now in a little bit darker of a color so that I remember that this is the line I'm looking at. My question asks, at 400 kilometers altitude, what's the atmospheric temperature at the maximum, at sunspot maximum? So I'm on the right line, sunspot maximum, give myself a little check there. I'm going to look at the atmospheric I'm going to look at the 400 kilometers altitude, that's on the y-axis. So I find 400, I'm going to trace it over to the line I'm supposed to be at, and notice that it's on the straight line. And then the last thing is it wants to know what's the temperature. So I'm going to go all the way down to my x-axis, and it's in between that 1,000 and 1,500. So I can immediately eliminate A, B right away. The last thing I'm looking at is it 1,100 or 1,400? Well, I know it's closer to 1,500, so that's going to be my answer. But if I look specifically at these lines, it's going up at a scale of 1,000. Or I'm sorry, of 100 each time. So that definitely is 1,400.
So
Okay.
pause.
That's a lot.
It's an economy of language.
Yeah.
So it definitely is. I am going to look at question number 1. Looking at question number 1, I am annotating figure 2. Because I need to look specifically at figure 2. As I am looking at figure 2, I should be looking directly at 400 kilometers. Let me go to 400 kilometers. I'm going to annotate that. Now, it needs to be atmospheric temperature. And so as you are walking through those, then you're eliminating as you're going.
Great.
So,
can I ask a follow-up question?
yes.
Okay. So in this case, I agree with you in what you're saying. Like I would literally go, okay, figure 2, boom. I'm at 400 kilometers altitude. So I'm going to look at my axes, see which one says altitude. That's where I'm focusing. My altitude at 400, boom, I'm there. That's what it should sound like versus what I think I was trying to do initially was, here's my question, now let's break down the graph.
Yes.
You don't want me to break down the graph.
So in this point, so they're more advanced now, right?
Right, so you don't need to do that.
Yes, you don't have to go
Okay.
that detail into it. So just go ahead and say, I'm looking at question 1. I know that I should be annotating
Yeah.
question 2 because that has all the information. Like you're kind of like thinking it through for them, so
Mhm.
they understand like these are the steps I should be taking as I'm doing a problem like this.
Got it.
Okay. So
Yep.
just really quick, just go ahead.
So, all right, so I'm reading through question number 1. According to figure 2, I'm going to box that in, at 400 kilometers altitude. So I boxed in figure 2 because that's where I'm going. And the first thing I'm looking for is 400 kilometers altitude. So if I look at my graph, I see that X is atmospheric temperature, don't want that. I see all those other lines, that doesn't match it. Altitude is my y-axis. So I'm going to go to altitude and where it says 400.
And
Boom.
altitude is important because that's what the question is asking us about.
Okay, and that's important because that's what the question is asking us about.
Mhm.
Great, so I'm at 400 kilometers altitude. It now wants to know the atmospheric temperature. Atmospheric temperature is my x-axis. So that's going to be where I look to find my answer. The last thing I need to know is at what line, because there are 3 of them. So it says at sunspot maximum. I'm going to go all the way over to where I see sunspot maximum. It's that furthest line on your right. So I'm going to trace it. At 400, go straight down, it's at 1400. I know that it's at 1400 because the scale goes up by 100 each time.
And now, that's when you say, is 1400 an answer choice? Yes. Let's circle 1400.
Got it.
Right?
Cool.
So,
And then if I had a kid that was like, so then we would debrief my model, right? What were the key steps in my model? The first thing you did was you annotated the question. Great, what did I specifically annotate for? This. Okay, great. When I did that, what was my next step? You went to the graph. What did I look at first? This.
Mhm.
What did I look at? Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
yes.
Okay.
And so,
Can I plan? So right now I'm doing my laser, right? I am planning for all of those lessons. Can I plan those lessons and send them to you, even if I don't have a date to teach them yet?
yes, you can.
Okay.
Just tag me in. And so, tomorrow, what is it? Wednesday? I'll come in Thursday morning to see this one. Okay?
Yep.
Thank you so much.
So helpful. Thank you so much.
And then I'll come in, so, and then I'm gonna schedule the time for us to actually